I think that it really comes down to this deep sense of purpose and belongingness, to love and be loved. And I think just very deeply know your fleeting moments here really were more than a blip is meaningful.
That's Katelin Holloway, investor and founding partner in 776. And this is Make Yourself at Home, the podcast that takes you into the homes of people you admire to show you a side you don't usually get to see. I'm Kristen Twyford, and every week we'll talk to someone at the top of their career to explore holistic success and how work and home are inextricably intertwined. Along the way, we hope to inspire you to live well, whatever that means to you. Make Yourself at Home is presented by Nines, the household management app designed to help you manage your home and everything that comes with it, so you can live with ease. Today, we're in Katelin Holloway's home in San Francisco, talking about how her own life informs her approach to investing in people, both in her career in people and culture at companies like Pixar, Klout, and Reddit, and today as an investor and founding partner at Alexis Ohanian's venture capital firm, 776. At work, Katelin is rewriting how companies think about belonging and being people first. And at home, she's just like the people on the other end of the changes she's making. She's a planner who struggles to stay present, a mom whose path to parenthood wasn't easy, and someone who thinks critically about what she wants her legacy to be. Make Yourself at Home with Katelin Holloway. Katelin, thank you so much for having us into your home. I'm so excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
I am so excited to participate. Thank you so much for the inclusion. I'm excited to chat with you.
To start out, I want to ask you a little bit about your home and where you're sitting today. Tell me about where you live and why you love it.
Oh, I'm already smiling. I love this question so much.
Good. I'm glad. I like to have a sense of place to start out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I am here in foggy, sunny San Francisco because San Francisco does not know what it is weather-wise. Mm-hmm. I am in a new house, actually. So I'm one of those folks that decided to move during COVID. Mm-hmm. But I moved 4 blocks from my old house because I love this city so much and mm-hmm. I love our neighborhood so much. We live in North Beach and we have been here for, I think, 21 years.
Wow.
So I'm long time local. Yeah.
Yes. And tell me a little bit about who you live with. I know you have 2 little boys at home and you've known your husband since you were 5, right? Tell me a little bit about your family.
It's true. So my husband and I are celebrating our 25th anniversary this next year, so this coming year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we waited a while to have our family, to start our mm-hmm. family. Part of that was by choice. Part of that was not by choice, by nature. Mm-hmm. But we have an 8-year-old and a 4.5-year-old, Luca and Juno, and both of which are actually home today. Sick. So if we get the fun interruption of family, but now you can address them by name.
Right, and it would be more authentic. So might as well have them come running through. And tell me a little bit about what home means to you.
Oh, I've listened to this show, and in almost every episode, every parent says exactly what I'm going to say, which is mm-hmm. it truly does not matter where I am as long as I'm with my boys. Mm-hmm. I'm home. And that sounds so like cheesy and silly. And I think I had a much stronger sense of identity with a geography when I was younger, before I had a family. Mm-hmm. I wanted to move to San Francisco since I was 5 years old when I met my husband. And we eventually made our way out here. And San Francisco is still like a huge part of my identity. I grew up here. The city raised me, more or less, and she has given us so many wonderful things, and I'm forever grateful for this town, to this town. But now that I have kids, we travel a lot. I'm so mm-hmm. fortunate I get to travel a lot for work, and my husband has flexibility, and so we get to go to so many incredible places. And it doesn't matter if we're in, a 300 square foot room or, living in the lap of luxury, but I don't care. I don't care where we are. As long as I'm with my boys, I'm home.
Amazing. And on this show, we love to explore that intersection between home and work. And I think you're just somebody who understands that better than anyone because you've really built your career on creating strong cultures, fostering other people's careers, helping people connect with each other, and, really focusing on the people that you're working with as people and not just as coworkers or as teams. And so I think I'm curious for you. I want to talk about all the amazing work that you're doing at 776, especially around that and how you're really investing in people. But to back it up a little bit, I want to know sort of where that comes from. And if you can think of a couple moments in your life where, you really felt like you found a sense of belonging or you felt like you were being invested in, that really kind of shaped how you think about investing in people now.
I appreciate you asking that very much. And truth be told, I haven't actually given this a lot of thought. It's the first time anyone's asked me that question, which, at my ripe old age, doesn't happen that often. So I really appreciate the question.
I'll wear that as a badge of honor. Thank you.
It's a good one.
I love making people think about new things.
It's so good. It's so good. And like when I think back, I moved a lot as a kid. I think I went to like 7 schools before I went to high school, before I got to high school. And so that's probably why I have such strong roots as an adult, like in a particular geography.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's a weird thing because when I'm thinking about the question, I'm like, gosh, when did I first feel a sense of community? Because growing up, I also didn't play sports, and this is one of my claims to fame. I'm like the only human on earth that's like I don't know anything about like team sports, solo sports, and it's very fitting that my business partner is very deep into sports,
right?
And so it's great. I'm like, I don't know. And so I think that's usually where a lot of people in their younger years really get that sense of community is through a team sport or church. And so I didn't grow up going to a church as well. And so I was trying to think really hard, like, where did I first feel community? And I think I also don't have a big family. I'm really going through the Rolodex of where do people feel community? And so I think the first times that I really genuinely felt it, this sounds so silly, but it was always through work. I've been working since I was 13 years old. And so this sounds so lame. I'm just the most boring one-dimensional person, but I have been working, and work is such a big part of my identity that I always really have found that camaraderie and connection through my work. And I think that has translated to why and how I've decided to lead people first with the organizations that I work for, and have really, made a great effort to help the organizations show up and meet people where they are, because that is where I have found it my whole life. And then, there's a slightly alternative answer to this question, which is I'm also a really big nerd. And so I spent a lot of time online when I was young, the old 14.4 dial-up modems and, hacking my own computers together so that I could get online. And so really finding those early online communities, and then ultimately Reddit, I was a Redditor long before I worked at Reddit. And the parenting community on Reddit, was incredibly impactful in my personal life as I was going through trying to start my family. And then after I had my baby, there's a whole big sad story in here about how I had several miscarriages. And so I found support through parents who had lost, pregnancies and experienced that kind of pain and frustration. And then ultimately I was able to have a child. As I mentioned, I have 2 kids. It's a happy ending.
Right.
And when my first son was born, we had some complications. In the grand scheme of things, they were minor, but in the moment, as a new parent and postpartum, it felt like the most devastating thing in the world. And the doctors could not give us answers. But when I went to Reddit, I found my community. I found my moms. And when I posted my frustration and kind of this is what's happening to me, I just have to put it somewhere. the moms of Reddit had my baby diagnosed within 24 hours. We were able to get the right
No
procedure, find the
way.
right doctor, and that issue that we were dealing with was resolved within a week, and like life completely changed as a new mom. And so like I have a very deep sense of connection and community through my IRL work and the colleagues and the
Yeah.
cultures that I've been lucky to be a part of. And then I've always had my online communities that I have found support and care in as well.
Right. Wow, that is amazing. And to find that sort of incredibly personal sense of community through an online platform like Reddit, and I know that that's incredibly personal to you now, especially after your experience there, but in that moment, that had to be so incredibly meaningful that all of these moms who you didn't even know were sort of coming to your rescue.
It was amazing. And the story gets better if you want me to keep going.
Keep going. I could listen to that all day.
I mean, like I said, it's really personal, but I think it shows the power of community. And again, this just doubles down every investment I've made, both from a policy and a procedural standpoint, and then also just a practical standpoint of being a human who shows up at within a community that wants to receive support. So after this incredible group of parents helped me through my very long multi-year saga of becoming a mother and then helping with the health outcomes of my child. This is a long, unrelated story for another day, but I wasn't able to breastfeed. Again, we're going to get really personal and intimate today.
This is a personal podcast. Bring it on.
Excellent. This is the marriage of all of the different parts of us.
Yep.
So I wasn't able to successfully breastfeed, but I did want to do my best to provide breast milk for my child. And so I found another online community that was all about maximizing or finding efficiency in pumping. And so I became like this pumping queen because of these other mamas who were sharing the strategies. Get this machine, do this, do that. And so anyway, I became like this insane like queen of pumping. And we were able to feed my firstborn for a whole year on this supply. And I was so proud of myself. I'd gotten so good at it, especially with all the shaming of like, breast is best and blah, blah, blah. And it just was such a frustrating experience for us. And so to feel like we had like overcome that was awesome. So again, like super grateful to the community. But then by the time we were ready to get my kid on real food, I was like, oh crap, what do I do with all this milk? So I had like a stash, like a major, like a whole like garage freezer full of milk. I probably could have fed him for another 6 months.
Oh my
and
gosh.
and it wasn't going down. So I went back to my community, the one that had given me so much in my own experience. And I just said, like, what does one do with breast milk? Like it's such a powerful thing, and you work so hard for it. I was like, there's like value here. What do I do with this? And I was connected with a woman who said that she had just been diagnosed with breast cancer. She had had a double mastectomy. She was pregnant with her first child that she struggled to conceive, and that it would be an incredible donation for her to be able to feed her baby. She lived 4 blocks from me. Never had met her in real life, did not know. It was all online, all on Reddit. And so when she said, well, where are you? Like, how do we ship this? I was like, well, I live in San Francisco. Like, I could drive it to you if you're in California. And she was like, girl, I'm 4 blocks away. And so now I get to see my baby play with her baby, knowing that like we were able to help each other. And so now it's funny, like they still live in the neighborhood and we see them on play dates. And so the power of community.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh, what a small world that she happened to live right down the street from you. That is crazy. Totally. And what an incredible story of community.
The online and offline, like married. And I was like, this is it. This is what it's all about.
Yes, exactly. That's so true. And isn't it just such a gift that you can make that kind of real in-person connection from something like that? That seems like the faceless masses. Like it really is real people out there who have your back.
Exactly. And all the bots.
Yeah. And all the bots. I know. Isn't it funny? All this news about ChatGPT, and then I'm hearing this story, and I'm like, wow, these are real people coming together. And then I'm so conflicted about this whole ChatGPT thing. I'd love to get your take. I feel like that's off topic for this podcast, but I'm still so curious about what you think.
I am too. It's so funny. So I actually will answer this question.
Yeah, go for it.
You kind of said it tongue in cheek, but like there's actually something that Alexis, my business partner, and I talk about a lot at our firm 776, where, we believe so deeply in the work that we do, this human first, this people first work that we do,
Yes.
community. But also at the same time, like, life is so complex and there are so many things that humans should actually not be doing. And so
Yeah.
he built software that we now use at our firm that does it automates a lot of the simple things that are asked of a VC firm that are fairly high impact to our founders, but like just require a lot of manual labor. So like,
Yeah.
oh, I want an introduction to the top, 10 marketers that I don't know, sell sports bras, whatever. Like, I'm making something up.
Yeah.
And so like they're able to just go in and put a query, and that's like a database query. So connecting in our networks, which is people, but what it does is it actually unlocks our team to do the strategic, creative, empathetic work. And so I'm a little bit of the like, bring on the robot overlords, like, yeah, bring them in, do the stuff that is like crummy, like let him do,
Right.
yeah, let him run payroll, let him do the stuff that like humans shouldn't be doing, so that we can do the really, really good and juicy work. And then I'm like, oh, I've also seen a lot of sci-fi movies. I don't know.
Yes. Well, I appreciate getting your take, and that does give me a lot of hope that that the idea that it could free up people to focus on that more like authentic, empathetic work is a really hopeful perspective. So I really like that outlook. Thank you. I want to get into your work at 776, and I specifically want to talk about one project that I think is really amazing that you're doing with founders, which is this 2% growth and caregiving commitment that you are investing in founders, not just in their businesses, but in them as people and in them as people more holistically. So tell me a little bit about that commitment and why it was so important to you guys to do.
Absolutely. So I'll give you just a little bit of background for the sake of context setting.
Sure.
So I've been an institutional investor now for the last like 3 years and change, which is not very long in the grand scheme of things. And 776 has been around for 2 years, and we started that up from literally nothing. And so I have a lot of learnings that I have around how a venture capital firm works or should work, or just frankly how we decide to work. It's because I don't know any better. And so I learn a lot from Alexis because he has been an institutional investor for, decade plus. And so there are some things that I know just from my past, and there are things that I just simply don't know and need to learn. And so I say that because what I do know and what my past is I was an HR executive, or we rebranded to people and culture, which is something we're very proud of. Like for a long time, 13, 14 years. I can't do math anymore. But so what I do know is people. And I know how organizationally, how to support and develop and grow employees within a company. And so when I moved over to the world of venture capital, I was struggling because venture firms tend to be smaller. These are not like blitz scale organizations. And how do you interact then with your investments? And Alexis was like, Katelin, it's people. It's what you know. It's what like our founders view them as our employees. They are not on our payroll. We're not responsible for doing performance reviews and all of the things that, all of the other nuts and bolts of that HR or employer-employee relationship. But similar to that relationship, it is in our best interest to help support them and help them be as successful as possible. And so I was like, oh, I know how to do that. That's in my wheelhouse. And so when we started 776, Alexis had shared that he wanted to kind of port over some of the people first policies that we had led together at Reddit. Things like, how do we help build a great environment for learning and development? And how do we make sure that we're supporting caregivers? And again, this is not an employer-employee relationship, so I don't get to administer benefits, right? I don't get to run programs. And he was like, well, why not? Why can't we do that? What would that look like? And then when he modeled out the back end finances, and this is how things work at a venture firm, I was like, oh, so you mean we can take some of our management fees, which are the fees that we collect from our investors that typically go to venture investor payroll and to operations of the firm. He was like, why can't we apply that and build a program that actually supports our founders. Because again, would you rather take that money and invest it in, for example, real estate? We're remote first. And so we don't have the overhead of rent or paying for a building for our team. So why can't we take that and translate that to something that we feel will give us the best leverage in terms of our returns, these outsized returns that investors, that's our job, to help make some companies as successful as possible. And so I was like, oh, if you give me a pool of cash, like just tell me how it works on the back end in a spreadsheet, and we can build the best program on earth, and with the input from our founders. And so when I realized that I could transfer a lot of the skills and a lot of the things that I had learned along the way, being an executive on the people side of the house, I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. And so we also care a lot about having our everything that we touch and under the umbrella of 776, we want to make sure that it reflects the communities in which we live. Venture capital very typically doesn't do that. They don't even post their own jobs, externally. So people don't, it's really even hard to break into the industry. Mm-hmm. But as we were thinking about what programs can we build that actually like kind of shine that beacon, that light that says, we're here, we see you as all of the dimensions that you are. And we also want to attract the people that are building that maybe might be thinking, I would love to build a company, but, I'm a mom, and how do I do that? Because I can't afford to take that early stage startup salary, which oftentimes, CEOs eat last. And so, when you're starting up a pre-seed company, you're trying to just get your business off the ground. You have a new child. It's a new baby. And so if you are, for example, a single income household, or, you used to have a company at a larger organization where you had more stable income and these really robust benefits, making that shift to then being an early stage founder it seems impossible, especially on the financial front. And so through the 2% so that's all context setting. Yeah. So we designed something that we've called the 2% program. And so for every pre-seed and seed stage check that we write into a new company, we put aside 2% of those dollars in a separate kitty that is exclusively for the use of the founders. And so of that 2%, and those numbers can stack up. Early stage investments are not insignificant. We're talking, a few $1 million. And so to have 2% of that early investment just simply earmarked for you, knowing it is there for you when and where you need it, and it is explicitly designed to be flexible. So this is something that I've learned in all of my years of leading people teams and running benefit programs for employees is what might work for you and might be helpful and supportive for you might be entirely different than the person sitting right next to you. And so my favorite example to use is a gym stipend. And so, that used to be all the rage. It was like, oh my gosh, they pay for my gym. It's like $90 a month. You get this thing. It's you submit your expense report for your gym membership, and then you get reimbursed. And it was like totally cutting edge. Like, wow, we're so people first. And I remember one holiday I was home visiting my brother. I have a little brother. Yeah. And I remember being like, oh, I'm in tech and we get like all these cool perks. And he was like, but can you use that for something else? And I said, well, what do you mean? And he was like, I don't go to the gym, but I go surfing every morning. Like, could they pay for my surfboard? And I was like, the audacity of you to ask that. Like how, what an entitled little wiener. And then I, of course, he was my brother, so of course I had to give him crap for it. And then I thought about it, and I was like, but if surfing every morning is his view of wellness, if he finds his health on a surfboard in the ocean and it doesn't impact his work, and in fact, it amplifies his work and makes him better, why would the company not just simply reallocate those dollars? It doesn't cost any more, any less. But what they're missing out on is servicing a demographic, a particular person. And so I started to reimagine, like, what does flexibility with these dollars mean? And you don't want it to be so open and flexible that you're just simply adding on to payroll by just saying like, hey, here's a blank check, just tack it on. Because then you aren't being really thoughtful about how you're spending that money. And so by simply saying, we have a wellness stipend that you can tap into, and you can use it, and you can give 20 different examples. If you want to take a class on surfboard shaping, if you want to pay to learn how to fix your road bike and like go and put your chain back on and change your tires and do all this stuff because you bike to work. Great. Let's do that. If it's meditation, if it's yoga, I don't care if you tell me I find my best, healthiest mental state is after I've gone and played Xbox for the evening. Great. Like who am I to judge, and who am I to say that works for me or that doesn't? I don't care. It's $90. But I want you to be really thoughtful about how you intentionally opt into that, because the point is, how can we help support that wellness journey for you, not dictate what that wellness journey should be. And so we took all of that and wrapped it into our 2% program. And so 1% of those dollars are designed explicitly for well-being and development. So learning, growth, development, anything. I don't care if it's books. I don't care if it's taking a course. I don't care if it's a gym membership. I don't care if it's an infrared sleeping bag. Like people have done the strangest things. Like, I don't care if that, like, great. If it works for you, it works.
Yeah.
And then the other 1% is exclusively for caregiving. And so again, who am I to say what caregiving means? If you are caring for your child and you want to go on a date night, if it just simply is going straight to the daycare center, if it is going to piano lessons, if it's going to your in-laws, and you want to you have to care for your aging parents in the home, and you want to put up a wall in between you and your mother-in-law, I get it. Go do it. Like, I don't care what those things are, as long as it feels like it will allow you to show up and be your very, very best self, and again, give you that foundation to go and build the very best business and give your business the very best shot at succeeding. So that was a very long-winded way of explaining the 2% program.
I think this program is amazing for so many different reasons. And number one is it starts at the top. And so you as investors showing these founders that you care about them as people is going to trickle down into their companies. They're obviously going to start building businesses with that same ethos, because how could they not when they have this vote of confidence from you guys? But then on top of that, I think it's really meaningful how you're really showing them, like, we know that the person you are outside of work is the person who comes to work. And so thinking about some of the stories that you've already shared, like thinking back to the beginning of this conversation and when you were going through that hard time building your family, when you were going to work during that time, you were bringing all of that to work too. And like, you've been there, you understand the other side too. And so this is incredibly meaningful that you're giving this gift to everybody that not only is a founder, but also all the people who work for those organizations too.
I am so glad that you connect those dots, because that's exactly what we're trying to do. And if we really think about the impact that we can have, not just from a financial standpoint, but really helping build the world's best organizations at scale, this is how we can do it. And so to think of, there are so many of these little fledgling companies that, yes, from an investor standpoint, I hope go on and become the next generation's best, and they're building the most innovative products, and we're impacting the world through the work that they're doing. But they're also employers. And so, being able to take all of those things that I learned and experienced, building organizations one at a time, to now be able to do that at scale and show them, hey, not only through a program like the 2% program, but also here's my Rolodex of, my toolkit on inclusive policies. And so creating a loss of pregnancy leave, since we used that as an example earlier, I created that out of necessity for myself. I want every company to have that, not just my company, not even just my companies within our portfolio. I want every company in the world to have that. And so for me, I really view this as such a privileged position of being able to share and help bring, like I said, I just want everyone to love what they do. I want everyone to show up and feel like they can produce their very best work, because, we're all just stardust, right? Like, at the end of the day, everything is so fleeting and so temporary. And so why not be set up for success to really enjoy and maximize every moment we have on this earth? So there's a bigger mission.
Definitely. And I think you're so right. And Thinking about your own career and looking back, were there times where you felt like you didn't have the support that you needed, that you thought, oh, I just wish that my company was seeing me as me? Like, was there a moment that was sort of a catalyst for how you think about this kind of thing?
Yes, several,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'll caveat that by saying, like, I really do think that I have been very lucky in my career. I've had such incredible mentors and managers and bosses and colleagues that have really helped shape who I am, and have helped shape this ability for me to help pay it forward and share those things. And so, for rolling my eyes and saying, "Oh my gosh, there's so many terrible
Yeah.
moments." I will highlight the few very particularly difficult moments that was very like, "Oh, that's what not to do." And the one so by and large, incredibly grateful for the experiences I've had. But I know that that's not the experience that many people have. And there's one particular moment in time where I remember. I don't know why I'm talking so much about Luca today. I'll go back to when I was first having him. So I was at a company that I loved, like from the very itty bitty inside of my core. I loved this company so much. It was my first tech company after I'd left Pixar. It was a company called Klout, and it was an absolutely life-changing experience professionally, personally. There were so many things about it that were phenomenal. And so, how this story goes. You go from a very high to a very low, and you're like, oh, I know what it looked like to have that, and then to have it be removed. And long story made short, I was kind of in a career transition. So I was pregnant when Klout was acquired. I was transitioning into the new acquiring company. That was complicated because, you're marrying two different cultures. And so, to be expected, it was challenging. And then also being like, 8.5 months pregnant, first baby, like hard pregnancy, but so wanted pregnancy. So there's all these conflicting like mom guilt feelings and like all of these things that, again, I was showing up every day with a whole lot of business. That was not my business.
And it's impossible to turn that off. You can't turn that off.
Oh, no, especially not with the raging hormones of and anxiety and, and the emotion of closing a chapter that I'd loved so much.
Right.
And I mean, there was a lot cooking. I remember being just so focused on wanting that transition to go successfully. And we were in labor and delivery. I'd gone through triage. We were in labor and delivery. And they were getting me hooked up to all the machines, and they're asking me what kind of medication I want, and I'm like, I don't know any of these things. And so I said earlier in the show, and this makes me, you can judge me all you want, but like work is such a big part of my identity. And it is such it is a safe space for me where I'm like, okay, if the world is going to heck in a handbasket, like at least if I'm working, I like feel safe.
Yeah, you got a handle on
this. Judge me
this.
all you want. I don't care.
I get it. I completely relate.
So I start cranking on work. I was like, it's all I know how to do. So I had my laptop out. I'm like, just stop talking to me. Like, and just do your thing. I was like, I have to go to my safe space. And so then my husband, they were like, ma'am, you got to lady, you got to put your computer away. And I'm like, okay. So they took my laptop away. I had my phone. So I'm on my phone. I'm like, da, 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 da. And they're like, hey, sister, you got to start pushing here. You got to participate. And I was like, no, like, it's fine. I just got to send this one last email. And then I'm sending this email, and somebody called me. And it wasn't my boss, but it was a situation that felt like very urgent. I was like, I have to take this phone call. So I pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, blah, 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 blah. Oh, sorry, I'm a little busy. And my husband just looked at me dead in the eyes, and he was like, if you cannot be present for the birth of your child, this whole parenthood thing is not really going to work out very well. And he took my phone and he threw it across the room, and it shattered into 1,000 pieces.
Oh my God.
And that, like, not only was I completely devastated, it was absolutely the right thing to do, because to have a situation where you have colleagues or a manager or a culture that say, yep, I'm going to go ahead and call her. Knowing exactly where she is, I'm going to go ahead and get in there. I need this answer. And the window's closing. Like,
Right.
are you kidding me? So the audacity of me to take the call and to be there. I had my reasons as to why I thought that was an okay decision. But to have this culture that really did not care about me. They were looking for the business outcome, and they needed information. At the time, I felt important and I felt needed, and so it felt good. And then in that moment of reflection as the phone was shattering, at UCSF, and the doctors are like, awkward, we got to get out of here. And to get that talking to from my partner was a pretty big moment in my life where I was like, that's not how I want to show up. And more importantly, I need a culture and an organization that's going to support me in this new chapter in my life. And so that was one kind of pivotal moment.
That is an amazing pivotal moment. I'm thinking, I love that he just knew exactly what you needed in that moment too. I guess when you've known each other for a lifetime, he can figure that out. That's nice.
Totally. Real talk. Look at me. This is not how we're going into this. You're right.
Amazing. And one thing that I've noticed, we've emailed a couple times setting up this interview, and I've gotten a couple of your away messages. And both of them were about being present with your family and taking time away from work to be present with them. And one of them was about Thanksgiving. Another was about a trip to Disney World. And you were talking about how it's just the window of time is small, that your kids really delight in that magic and can see that magic. And you wanted to focus on that completely. And I thought, both times I just thought, wow, she's really like practicing what she preaches. Like, you really do this with your organizations, but to see you setting that example, even with me, a stranger who doesn't work directly with you, was so meaningful. And to not only be taking that action, but to really be transparent about it and setting that example for other people, I think is really nice. And so now, even though you are still as much in love with your work as ever, maybe more so now because your work is so personal and meaningful, how are you, kind of shifting how you think about being present at home and being present at work and sort of practicing what you have set up for other people through things like the 2% program?
Well, first of all, thank you for the feedback. I really appreciate that. I write those usually in a blur.
Well, they're very clever. Whatever. I really like all of them.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. The simple power of an away message.
It's so true. They can be so boring, or you can make them more delightful. And why not choose delightful,
Right? And also, turn it on. That's the lesson. It's also, use it. It exists. Turn it on.
Yep.
It's so funny. We have a woman on the team who's about to come back from maternity leave, and I was asking her, what is one of your biggest anxieties about returning to work? How can I support you?
Yeah.
And she said, honestly, I don't want to turn off my away message. And I said, and her away message actually she open sourced her parental leave transition plan. So for every other parent who gets the out of office, it's like, by the way, we've open sourced how we've decided to redelegate the work on a team of 8. So anyway, we love our away messages and adding clever things in. But she was like, I don't want to turn my away message off. And I was like, so don't. And she was like, wait, what? But I'm back. And I was like, if that gives you anxiety, don't turn it off. If that gives you space and sets a boundary until you feel like you're really back in it, don't turn it off. Tweak it. Be like, I'm half back. Whatever whatever. Or I'm back, but I'm not ready to be back in my inbox. Do whatever you want. So anyway, big fan of away messages. Actually, I think that partially answers your question is we care so much about this at the firm. And you said it earlier, it really starts at the top. And for me, where I am in my career, having a seat at the table for as long as I have now, it also starts with our partnerships. And so I've had partnerships that have not felt like this or have not been designed to support the things that I know that I need to be successful at my, my desk, whether that's virtual or in an office, and then also being present with my family and all of the other priorities in my life that make me that I sometimes neglect. And so choosing your partner is incredibly important and should not be underestimated. And that is both your partner in life, you're the person who you're going to live outside of work with, and your partners at work. And so for me, this is the third time that I've had the privilege of working alongside Alexis. And I've known him now for I don't know, 8 years or something. And I've even just in that 8 years, I've watched him go through an incredible personal transformation. And based on the person he has shared with me that he was when he first started his first company, a long, long, long time ago. Sorry, Alexis, I'm aging you. But he describes how he was a very different leader then. And, being a young CEO that did not have any real work experience outside of building his own companies, he didn't know what was right, what was wrong. He just knew that he had to do this thing from a business perspective. And so he got to learn those lessons along the way. And so by the time our paths crossed, he was just getting into a more serious relationship. I watched him get married. I watched him have his first baby. And every step of the way, he was learning and watching and trying to understand, how does this fit in to my ethos as a leader? And I'm very, very grateful that he listened to me when I would give him advice, sometimes solicited, sometimes unsolicited. But things like, hey, dude, you got to take your parental leave. I get it. You're not the birth parent, but you gotta show and demonstrate that your organization can do that successfully. Because if the leadership team can do that, if the founder of the company can do that, you're automatically giving permission to everyone else. And so, we fought that for a while, back and forth. Well, how could I? Well, optically, I don't know. And practically, I don't know. Yeah. And then I remember very vividly, we were sitting in the lobby of the Clift Hotel in San Francisco, and they were getting ready for childbirth. And I was, again, saying, you got to take your leave. And he was like, well, we'll see. And I remember vividly just telling him, I said, I know that, and I don't want to be a downer here, but I know that childbirth, for as advanced as we are, Mr. Internet, there are things we can't control, and you just don't know. And, knock on wood, everything goes great for y'all. And many of them do go just fine. But I just want you to know, not only there are some unknowns on just the physiological side of childbirth, but also you don't know how, you're going to show up as a parent. You don't know that version of you yet. He's hiding down in there. That dad is trying to come out with his New Balance shoes and wants to hit the ground running, but you don't know him yet.
Yep.
And it might be a little weird. And by the way, your partner is going to learn how to be a mom, and you're going to have this new little human, and there's a reason we create leave, because trust me, employers wouldn't do this if it wasn't so critical. It wouldn't be policy mandated from the federal government if there wasn't a real true need. So you never know, dude. And he was like, yeah, okay. And then, they get to the hospital, and things did not go according to plan. And things were really, really, really hard and very, very scary around the health of his partner. And he really had to show up and step up in, physically parent and from jump in a way that, those happy early days that a lot of parents get when you have a healthy, easy delivery, they did not have that opportunity. And so he got to take his leave. He had to take his leave. And that changed everything for him. And so I don't mean to tell his story, but I'm using that as an example to say, it is so deeply embedded in our culture. It is rooted in who we are, to support both on the caregiving side and the developmental side, recognizing that we are here to learn and grow with each other. And if we aren't open to that, if we think that we know it all, we are so host because there's so many things we don't know. And so for me, it's easy. It is easy, but it's been decades of watching systems not work for people, and watching people point to policies and stupid employee handbooks that they signed their life away to when they started that don't actually match that human experience. And so, I take an approach both through policy, because I like people to have things written down that they can point to. Again, those beacons of light that say, oh my goodness, you have a domestic abuse policy? did that take me very long to do and write? No, but it demonstrates like I see you, and this is a space that we would support someone maybe in a really terrible situation. That's just one example.
Right.
But so we lead through policy, and then we also lead through practice. That is an incredibly important part of who we are as a young and developing firm. And again, in our industry of finance, the more we can open source, the more we can share this to. Some industries are more advanced than others, and so anything we can do to push the whole industry forward, we want to do.
And thinking about your sort of idea of success, it feels like you're in this place where you are shaping policy not only for 776, but setting an example in the world of VC and also for all of the companies that you're working with. You're doing work that's really meaningful to you personally. And as somebody who loves to work, to get to do work that's that meaningful is even better. And then you've got these two kids and you've got a great relationship. And so looking at your life today, it sounds like you're kind of where you want to be. Is this what you were striving for when you were younger? Or do you think that you would be surprised at where you've ended up?
Girl, I'm surprised every day when I wake up.
You're like, oh, it's still here. I can't believe it.
I kid you not. My husband was helping me even set up for this conversation. And I was like, oh, the lighting is so funky. And he put up a few little lights around my computer, and we were setting up, and he was looking, he said, does that look okay to you? And I was looking on the screen, I'm looking at the monitor, and I go, gosh, that looks so pretty. I was like, that chair looks so good. I said, gosh, like they might actually think that like I'm fancy. And he looked at me and he goes, turn around, like turn around. You live here. like why are you still like in your mind? You think that like you have not like, that's my chair. I picked that chair out. I bought that chair. Like, I'm telling you, as a kid who came from very little, I came from a place with a lot of love and not a lot of resources. And I wouldn't change that for the world. But like, I just feel so grateful. Like the depth of gratitude that I have. I'm getting mildly emotional about it, and I'm going to knock it off. But like, I am so incredibly lucky on every front, not just because of a chair. The chair is stupid. I don't care about the chair.
But it's a good symbol.
Although I thought the chair was very pretty when I looked at it. But I say all the time, when I'm talking with younger people and they say, what words of advice would you give? And I think that the reality is like, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And the thing that has worked for me, that somehow has provided me with everything that I am so fortunate to have in my life, again, from love to that stupid chair, like, and everything in between, really, I think comes from a place of curiosity. I've given so much of my success, and this is hard to say because I think especially as women, we're conditioned to not talk about these things, but I've given so much of my success away to the word luck. Oh, I'm lucky. And for the longest time, I just thought, I just keep showing up at the right place at the right time, and there happens to be the right person that takes me under their wing or gives me a chance or, gives me that opportunity, lets my foot in the door. But the reality is like to be at the right place at the right time, you have to be brave enough to show up and confident enough to take that opportunity and turn it into something more. And so again, in my, all of these years on earth, I still wake up every day shocked as shit that I'm I'm in my own shoes. And I'm sorry for cussing. But okay. I feel so lucky.
Yeah, I get it. I think gratitude is just the most wonderful feeling, and I think it is such a gift to feel that every day when you wake up and to be in awe of how much you've accomplished. And especially in your case, like you really have done so many things that impact other people. And so I think it's coming back and, making you feel good, which is amazing too. So thank you.
It drives everything. So yeah. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
It really does. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I want to get into our lightning round of fun questions.
Yeah.
I can't leave this interview without asking you something about Pixar. So I can't decide if I want to ask you your favorite Pixar film or your favorite story from your time working there. Which would you rather answer?
Oh my goodness. I have 20 answers for both of those questions. Oh God. Okay. My brain. I know lightning really twerps me out.
Not so lightning.
I do this to people on my podcast, and I'm like, oh man.
I know. Yours is really lightning too. This one's a little more laid back lightning. It should be called the fun round rather than the lightning round.
Right. Okay, I'll go with option A. Because I think that's the shorter, more lightning-y answer. And I'm going to be really specific. It is the first act of the film Up. Oh. And I will tell you why. I tend to like the first act of most films. Like the first act of WALL-E is just like the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen. But the first act of Up could be its own film. But the reason it is so meaningful is that the artist that wrote it and brought it to life, it was about him and his wife. Oh. But they are not old. But they were going through that. I know, it still makes me emotional. They were going through a moment in their life where they had come to terms with the fact that they probably would not be able to have children. It's so emotional. But like, and then he projected forward what their life would look like. And it was like, it's beautiful. Gosh. So I love it. Yeah. So the first act of Up.
That is amazing. Oh my gosh. And now we're both emotional. First question of the lightning round.
We'll turn them to laughter tears. So yeah, first act of Up.
And coming out of that, thinking about your own marriage, you're going into 25 years of marriage with someone that you've known for a lifetime. Yeah. What is one thing that you've learned from your husband?
Oh God. Again, the one thing, I'm like, I don't know.
It can be anything. It doesn't have to be your favorite thing. Just one thing that you really appreciate.
Yeah, one thing
you've learned from him.
He really does keep me present. It's something that I have a very hard time doing. He tells me at least once a day that I need to meditate. But anyone who knows Ben knows that he is down for anything, anytime. He is the most open, ready to embrace life human that I've ever met. And it is so the opposite of me. In that, like, you know, I'm a Virgo, I'm a planner, I'm very pragmatic. I live in the future. And now that I'm an investor, I have an excuse. I'm supposed to be looking 10 years into the future all the time. Like, I love this.
Yes.
So I'm constantly future casting. Like my brain just operates in, you know, months, years ahead of where we actually are, and what I'm actually doing. And he reminds me daily and usually multiple times a day, similar to that story in Labor and Delivery where he was like, look at me. I am here. Your baby is trying to meet us. Let's please do this. He is the picture of presence. And I appreciate that.
Yes. What's a space in your home that you love, or a decision about your home that you've made that you love?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. I feel like we haven't settled into this new house just yet. We just haven't, you know, I haven't found the rhythm in this home. But something, I'm actually going to talk about my last home, and something that I hope to translate to this home is I mentioned earlier that we've traveled a lot. We've been very fortunate to travel a lot. And we lived in this rental for a long, long time. And, small San Francisco apartment. And we wound up designing every space after a place that we had visited that we loved. And so for me in our old house, I loved our dining room. It was an old Victorian, so it was like that long. So everyone had to go through the dining room multiple times a day because it's the long kind of boxcar style. And we designed it after the Mad King Ludwig's castle. That was there's a whole like German royal history here that I'm not going to go into because this is not that kind of podcast. So he was one of the last of the king. He was the last king of Bavaria, and he was a gay man who could not be out. And he became so depressed and so frustrated that he would retreat up to the mountains, to his mountain home. And there was a lot cooking here. Like there's a bigger story here. But his place of rest, his place of I can be me and I can feel like me was his bedroom. And so he actually became nocturnal because he felt like that was the only time he could be himself, because everyone was asleep, no one was in his business, and he just could be present and be himself. And so he turned his bedroom, he painted it all this really beautiful, dark, gorgeous blue. And it went up like floor to ceiling, all across the ceiling. And on the ceiling, he had built, he painted the stars in gold, and just really this beautiful like rococo, like dripping with like gorgeousness. And he put lights, but they were oil lamps. He had drilled through the floor above. He actually hired a set designer to come and do this for him, so that he could see the stars in his room at night, because that's where he found peace. And I felt like I fell in love with this room. I fell in love with the story. And so we designed our dining room to look like that. And so it was all this really beautiful dark, but it was all like monochromatic and like just gorgeous and lovely. But that winds up being the heart, is, where you're having those family dinners, you're having those dinners with friends, and to just be in the space that is so comfortable, and to have the story to say like, you can be at peace here, like be yourself. So it was our dining room.
I love that. I can't wait to see what your new house brings. You have to go travel some more and get some more inspiration.
Exactly. But it was so lovely to have a home where, you could be like, oh, this was the Grand Canyon, or this was the, like all of these moments in our lives, or these moments of design that we were inspired by. I should be very clear. My husband's trade, he's an artist. So he's a creative. He comes from a long line of artists. So this is not me getting wild. Like, he is the brainchild here. I just love to sit in that room.
Amazing. Yes, and to enjoy it. What's one thing in your home that makes your life easier?
A dishwasher. This sounds so basic, but I lived in San Francisco without a dishwasher for 20 years. And so to upgrade to a home that has a dishwasher, I swear I won the lottery. Like, to this day, like how I wake up every morning just shocked that like I'm alive and like here, like woo. Every night when I'm doing dishes, I put the dishes in. There's like a little dance. You got a little slide. It was like woo, woo, woo. Like, we are on next level over here, y'all.
It's so exciting. I understand. New York City is the same. So someday.
Totally.
I love it. I love to ask people about their treat yourself item, but for you, I already have one in mind, and I want to hear the story of your traveling Dyson Airwrap.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up.
I'm so excited to hear all about it. I read the Twitter thread. I want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
So it involves yet another meltdown. I was given the Dyson Airwrap. It was like all over TikTok. It was all over everything. All these influencers. You see the beautiful Farrah Fawcett hair. And my husband bought it for me as a gift when we closed, I think, our first fund. So silly, but so like I was like, oh my gosh. And I have really, really long, thick hair that I don't know how to do. I also like never learned how to do these things. It just was not, I was born in Alaska. We makeup, hair, we don't do these things. And so I got this Airwrap. It took me like 3 weeks to actually figure out how to use it. And then I became obsessed, and I was like, I don't know how I've operated without this. And this thing is expensive. Like, we're talking like $600. This thing is not cheap. And so it was this like beautiful, lovely gift from Ben. And then I had to go to Europe to do some work. I was speaking at a conference, and I brought my Airwrap, and I brought my adapter, and I had like done my research, and it was like, yeah, this, that, and the other thing. And I saw that some people had had some troubles, but I was like, well, I read the Reddit thread, so I know I got my adapter. I'm good to go. I didn't read them well enough. And so we get there, and you didn't need like an adapter. You needed like a full, like, I don't even know. It was like a transformer, basically. Like you needed like a whole, basically my thing was not working. It was not going to work. And I had become so dependent on it in just those few short months that I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And the Airbnb I was staying at had like no regular blow dryer. Like I was like, okay, like God, I need like a curling like, and it's humid there, and like I was a mess. I was a mess. And this was also like the first. I think it was my first speaking gig, like live. Like everything has been on here where you can kind of control your environment
Right.
virtually, and so like I just had an epically stupid meltdown. Like it was one of those, like, I know that I'm being completely irrational right now. And so I was like, I'll get a round brush and a blow dryer, and like I'll just leave it in the Airbnb for the next people, because like
Right.
every Airbnb should have a blow dryer.
Yeah.
And so like I had started like being moderate about it.
Right.
And then as like I made it through the first day unhappy, started to get through the second day, and I was like, no, no. And so my meltdown became worse. And then I sound like such a turd. I'm so sorry. But I see a Fnac, like the French like Radio Shack or like Best Buy, and I was like, I'm going in there. We're gonna get something. And so again, now I've like upgraded where like, okay, not just a round brush and a blow dry. Like I'm gonna get a curling iron. Like I'm gonna go all in. And we get there, and I see it, the Dyson, and it's sitting there. And I walked up, and of course it was more expensive in Europe. Oh, and to add insult to injury, the new air wrap was coming out the next week. So it's like the old model. The new air wrap was not out yet. And so it was the stupidest possible decision I could have made, where I was like, my husband just sat there and he was like, I support whatever decision you make. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm doing it. I don't care. I'm doing it. And so I bought the stupid old version, and I looked fabulous, and I felt good. I felt confident. And then I felt stupid. I felt so stupid for doing this. And so I vowed then and there, I was like, I'm going to pass this on to any person, any living, breathing human with hair on their head that wants this, that is well groomed and not nasty, is going to have the opportunity to have the Dyson. And so I left it behind with a friend of mine from the conference who was going on to visit, another country for a different conference, and she mailed it back. And then when I got it back, I gave it to my best friend who was planning. She had a wedding she was doing somewhere, and then so this Dyson has been everywhere now. Right now, it's actually in Barcelona with my colleague Christina, who is coming back from maternity leave. It makes me so happy. So anyway, I turned this very stupid decision, a very manic decision, into this gift to like I said, any human with a clean head of hair that's traveling to Europe is welcome to use this stupid Dyson.
And you can't put a price on that sense of confidence that it gives you, It's a good hair day is worth a lot.
I'm telling you, I've been locked up in COVID. I gained a lot of weight. I was like, my clothes weren't fitting. I was now in the south of France. Everyone's so beautiful and gorgeous, and like there's models walking around, and I was sitting there with my flat little head, and I was like, I just need my hair. So it was a meltdown of epic proportion. So anyway, next time you go to Europe, let me know. I'll mail it to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Who's somebody who you admire, who you think really lives well?
I'm gonna have a little bit of recency bias here, but I just had a visit with my friend Julie. She lives out in Miami. She is a mom to a young, sweet little baby, and she is just such an incredible person. She's had this phenomenal career. Recently moved out of the Bay Area not recently. She's been in Miami before it was cool, to be clear. But we had the opportunity to sit down and have a cup of tea when I was out for work. And she has transitioned into being a full-time stay-at-home parent. And the grace and class in which that woman has done this is just, it's just so impressive. As I said, work is a really big part of my identity. And it was a very big part of hers as well. And so it just was so lovely to watch her transition so gracefully, so openly, and just doing it so well. I just sat and grilled her. She just did this big remodel on their house, and she led that project. And so she is finding joy in using her skill set in ways that are benefiting where she is now, and just was so lovely and present. And I just looked at her like tip to toe. I was like, you've got this all figured out. Wow. It was just really impressive. So Yeah, Julie.
I love that. Great answer. And today, what does a life well lived look like to you?
Life well lived. That's a really, really hard question.
It's a big question.
It is. I think that it really comes down to this deep sense of purpose and belongingness. And I think that, to love and be loved, to know what it's like to know that you matter, that your fingerprints are going to be here. I turned 40 sometime in the pandemic, and it has really shifted my mindset a lot to legacy and the things that we can do to help everyone live their very best lives. I talked about Stardust earlier because that's the mood I'm in today. But, I really think that to find that sense of purpose and to find that really deep sense of belongingness, it doesn't matter how many stupid chairs or Dyson Airwraps you have, but really to love and be loved. And I think just very deeply know that your fleeting moments here really, were more than a blip, is meaningful.
Well, Katelin, thank you so much. Thank you for having us into your home, and thank you for such a wonderful conversation. I have so enjoyed it.
I have too. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to think about things that I haven't thought about lately, or ever. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
I'm so glad. And you've given me a lot to think about too. And I think it'll really inspire everybody who listens. So thank you again.
Thank you. Big fan of the podcast. So I'm excited to hear all of your future guests. And I'm so honored to be one episode. So thank you.
Thank you to Katelin Holloway for welcoming us today. Follow along with Katelin on Twitter @KatelinCruz. I'm Kristen Twyford, and if you enjoyed our conversation, I hope you'll subscribe to Make Yourself at Home and leave us a review. Make Yourself at Home is presented by Nines, household management software that helps you manage your properties and everything that comes with them, so you can make the most of your time at home. Learn more at ninesliving.com.